Hi everyone, I'm Tova and thanks for joining. Today's Vinyasa flow class is a little mix of everything. So working on your hips, opening up through your chest and shoulders, and having some nice relaxation time at the end. Starting today's class, getting comfortable standing at the top of your mat. Let your arms relax down by your sides, almost imagining that you've got some small weight in your hands, just helping to lengthen and reach the fingers down a little further. Maybe turning your palms towards the front, opening the chest and shoulders a little bit more. I'm just taking a few nice deep centering breaths here. Bringing our hands to our heart, continuing with deep, strong breaths as we start to move through today's Vinyasa practice. Release the palms and inhale, reach your arms up overhead. And exhale as you swan dive forward, soften your knees, bow your head. Inhale, lift and lengthen partway. And exhale as you reach for the floor, stepping or hopping back into a high plank, and then easing yourself down either from your knees or from your toes. Turn the toes under. Lift and peel away from the mat for cobra. Releasing, flattening, pressing up and back to downward facing dog. Again, going from knees or from toes as we start to warm the body here. Maybe taking a few moments to pedal your feet, shift your hips around a little bit, just really getting settled in. And if you're new to yoga, a good way to check your downward dog position, how far your feet are from your hands, is shift forward into a plank, and you should be in about the right push-up position here with very slight need to move your hands or feet closer together when you push back to downward facing dog. Perfect. From here, looking to your hands, stepping or hopping to the top of your mat. Relax your back, lower your head as you hang forward. And just taking a couple extra breaths here our first time. Relax your head, your neck. Maybe give your neck a little bit of movement, like yes and like no. And then with a nice flat back, inhale, engage as you lift to come all the way up to top. Maybe back bending at the top if that feels right for your body. Exhale as you swan dive forward, bow your head. Inhale, lifting a little. Exhale as you reach for the floor, coming back to that high plank position. Lowering down as the elbows squeeze by the ribs. Turn the toes and lift one vertebrae at a time. This should feel gentle. Release and press up and back to downward facing dog. Shifting back, tipping the sitting bones high. Soften your knees so that you can tip the sitting bones up with ease. Look to your hands, hop or step forward. Exhale, relax your back, lower your head. And inhale, big breath, come all the way up, eyes up, chest up as you rise up. Taking one more salutation here, swan dive back forward. Inhale, lift, lengthen. And exhale as you start to make your way back to high plank. Easing your body down, engage your core. Turn the toes and lift, shining your heart ahead. Draw your shoulders down your back, but lift your eyes and chin. Release and press back to downward facing dog. Breathing deep all the while. Perfect. Take your knees gently down to your mat, coming on to all fours as we start to move through a few rounds of cat and cow. So just further warming up the spine, getting everything working properly. As you lower your belly, lift your tail, lift your head, take a nice big deep breath in. And as you exhale, scoop your tail under, round your back, dropping your chin. Inhale, lower the belly, lift the tail, lift the head. Exhale, round the back. Finding as much movement as you can, moving through a few more rounds at your breath and at your pace. Trying to lead with your tail and have your head be the last part of the movement. As you look to find movement across the whole back here, so not just through the hips and not just through the neck, but really focus through the mid back. Perfect. Coming back as you finish your next round, stopping when you get to neutral spine. And we're going to proceed here with some thoracic openers. So I'm just going to turn to the front and then I'll turn back to the side just to make sure that you can see me well here. So you're going to put your right hand on your ear and make sure that you keep the palm of your hand glued to your ear. If it starts to come off, that means you're going too far. From here, inhale, rolling, looking up, turning your elbow as high towards the roof as you can. And as you exhale, close it back off. Inhale, peel and roll up, and exhale, close. Inhale, peel, roll up, and exhale, close. And one more time, big inhale, rolling up, and exhale to close. Perfect. We're going to switch sides here. So bring the opposite hand to your ear, elbow pointing down. And as you inhale, you're aiming to point your elbow up towards the ceiling as high as you can. Exhale, close. Moving with your breath here. And your aim is to work towards a place where your elbow is pointing straight up to the ceiling. Good. Exhale. Taking our third round, rolling up. And if your elbow, like mine, is not reaching all the way to the ceiling, that lets you know that you need a little bit more work on opening your shoulders, your chest, your mid-upper back, that thoracic area. Good. And close for the fourth time. Perfect. Coming back to center. Tucking back over the toes, pressing back to downward facing dog. Looking to your hands, stepping up to the top, and particularly for those that are military, if you're not able to step your foot up to the top, it's going to make getting up and down for your forced rush evaluation very difficult. And for those that are not military, this is just a really good life skill to be able to take a nice big step, which means that you've got good hip mobility. Perfect. Relax your back. Inhale, big breath, come all the way up. Taking one sun salutation here. Exhale as you swan dive forward. Inhale, lifting, eyes looking just forward as you flatten your back. Reaching for the floor, stepping or hopping back to high plank as you lower, engage your muscles. Turn the toes, lift for cobra, or take upward facing dog here if it's part of your practice. Release and press to down facing dog. Perfect. Looking to your hands, stepping up to the top. And that big step up to the top, boost your foot if it doesn't make it all the way there. But this can be a great way to evaluate how your hip mobility is coming along. You'll start to notice that it gets easier. Your foot gets further forward. You have to boost it less until you get to the place that it just comes up there on its own. Stepping the back foot up. Relax your head and neck. Inhale, big breath, come all the way high. Perfect. Bringing your hands down to your heart here. And we're just going to work to open the hips a little bit here with some dynamic malasana stretches. So take your legs about shoulder width or maybe just a little bit wider. And we're going to look to squat down, bringing the bum low. And you could also take one of your yoga blocks and tuck it underneath your bum if you need a little bit of a boost or a little bit of a seat here. Place your hands on the floor, lifting your hips up, straightening the legs, and then dropping the tail back down. Let your seat sink. Bring your hands together, provide a little bit of outward pressure on the thighs, so opening the groins a little bit more. Put your hands back down on the ground, lift the hips, straighten the legs, and then lower the seat, drop back down low, come back up, trying to keep your back as straight as you can here. And if this is really difficult for your ankles, if your heels are lifted off the floor, you can always work on this posture on its own. Tuck a book or a rolled up towel or an extra yoga mat underneath your heels and slowly decrease the depth of whatever's tucked under there to help stretch out the ankles and the calves a little bit more deeply. Good. Let's go one more time. Lift the hips and then lower, bring the bum back down, bring the hands back to heart center, provide a little bit of outward pressure through the thighs, breathe deep. Wonderful. Press back into the feet, lift all the way to come up to the top. Stepping up to the top of your mat, let's take one more sun salutation. Inhale, arms reach high, and exhale as you pour forward, melt down. Inhale, lengthen your back, eyes look ahead, shoulders draw back. Reach for the floor hopper, step back to plank. Lowering down, elbows squeeze by the sides, turn the toes and inhale. Lift from the floor, back bending, opening your heart. Release and press back to downward facing dog. Shifting the sitting bones way back and way up. Relax your neck. Bring your knees gently down to your mat as we come into puppy stretch. So we're gonna start in a high kneeling position with your hips over top of your knees. Walking your hands forward to start to melt your elbows and then your forehead down to the mat. As you start to melt, your aim is to bring your chest as close to the floor as you can manage, without pain, without too much discomfort. So if this stretch is too strong, I want you to shift your weight further back, bringing your bum closer to your heels until you get to a place that it is a comfortable amount of stretch for you. And that could mean bringing your bum all the way back to your heels to come into resting child's pose, if that's where you need to start for today. So finding that place, and we're just gonna hang out here for a couple more breaths. And not only is this about opening up through the chest and shoulders, but it's also about releasing tension through the middle of the back, right between your shoulder blades. If that area is really tight, this can be very challenging as well. Perfect. Slowly coming back out of puppy pose and coming into kneeling. And here's a place in the class we are going to kneel for a little bit. So if you do have a small cushion or a bolster or a yoga prop that you want to grab for this, go ahead and bring that on over to your mat. Of course, you can do it without, or you can also fold your mat in half just to give you a little bit of extra cushion underneath your knee. So we're gonna start by tucking the cushion underneath our right knee and stepping our left leg forward to come into a low lunge. And we're just gonna start nice and easy with our hands down on the ground, or if it's hard for you to reach the ground, a block can always be tucked underneath the hands to give you a little bit of a lift here. Breathe. Good. From here, I want you to lie over your thigh. Tuck your chin down all the way, as close to your chest as you can get it. And then start to straighten your front leg. And just come to the place that you feel a gentle stretch across your hamstring. Notice that if you lift your head, we start to release the stretch there. So we're really not stretching just our hamstring. We are stretching the whole fascial line from the back of the heel, up the leg, across the back, right to the back of the head and neck. So drop your chin, and if that means you need to back off the stretch a little bit, back off the stretch a little bit to keep your chin down. Perfect. We're going to shift back forward in that low lunge, changing our position here, working our way up to hands on the thigh. So this is going to take you a little bit deeper into hip opening. If it's too much, you can always come back to this place with hands at the floor or hands at the block. Let your hips feel like they're drawing forward, releasing to that center space. And in terms of working on our hips, opening up the front of the hip as well as the back of the hip or the glutes. So those are the two main areas that we want to work on. And we've already done a little bit of work for our inner thighs when we were in those malasana squats. But those are the three target areas that we want to focus on if it's your hips that are not moving so well. Good, let's lie back over, drop the chin, shift back. Good, and one more time, shifting forward, bringing the hands up to the thigh. If this is more than enough of a stretch for you, you're just gonna stay right here. If you're up for taking it one step further, bringing your arms up over your head, which may or may not include a little bit of a back bend here. I'll leave it up for you and your body to decide what's gonna work best for you. But remember, we can always regress back to hands on the thighs or hands all the way back down to the floor. And you can work through the levels as your hips become more open every time you practice. Perfect. And one last time, lying over the thigh, bow the head, shifting back to come into half monkey God pose. Perfect. Shifting forward, we're going to come on out of that position and we're going to switch the cushion over to the opposite side. And I generally recommend using a cushion underneath the knee, especially if you know that you're going to be there for a little bit, even if it's something that doesn't bother your knee. Sometimes the things that people do that don't seem to bother them when they're younger and they've done it a billion times, as their bodies get older, it can be something that then does become a problem. So the more gentle we can be on our knee is always a good thing for that joint. Doesn't mean every single time we're going to have that opportunity if we're flowing and we're moving quickly, but when we do, let's try to take it. So starting in that low lunge position with your hands down on the ground or using your block here, just beginning with a little bit easier, gentler hip opening. And how you can help decide what's easier, what's harder for your body is think about taking a string and attaching it from your shoulder to your knee in this position. As we start to tighten that piece of string, that lets you know that the stretch is getting stronger or a little bit more intense or more difficult. Good. Bow the chin, lie over your thigh, shifting back. And you only want to come to a place that feels like about a 7 out of 10 here. So not getting your body so worked up that it's so tight in this stretch that anything feels like it's a piano string about to snap. That means we're in way too deep. We do want to be gentle with our bodies here. Perfect. Shift forward, coming up to that second level, hands on thighs. So if we had that string tied, you would notice that the string got a little bit tighter as I lifted my upper body up, creating a little bit longer line of stretch through the whole fascia. So not just the hip, but stretching that fascial line up through the shoulder. Perfect. Lying back down over your thigh, bow your chin, shift your hips back, stopping when you find just the right amount of stretch for you. Perfect. Shift forward. Last time in that low lunge position, staying lower, bringing your hands higher up onto your thigh, or maybe coming all the way up, lifting your arms somewhere up overhead. And when our arms are overhead, it's important to be where it's comfortable for your body. So that might be arms a little bit wider, it might be more narrow, it might be all the way together, and it could be more forward as opposed to straight up. So making sure that your shoulders are happy and comfortable here. Lifting your arms, but drawing your shoulders down your back. Take one more nice, big, deep hip opening breath. And then folding back forward, bow your chin is the last time we stretch through that whole fascial back body line. Good. Slowly releasing. Just tuck the leg down. You can take your cushion and just move it off to the side. Close enough that you can reach for it because we might use it again a little bit later in today's practice. So we're going to move through some additional floor exercises now that can help not only open your hips, but we're going to do a little bit to work on our chest and shoulders as well in today's practice. So we're going to start with an exercise I like to call the ruthless roll, and it really helps to open through the thoracic spine. So if you do have a yoga bolster or a cushion or a block, this can also be done with a foam roller, and by no means does it need to be a long cushion like this. This is just what I have for today. So you're going to start by lying on your right side, and if you do have a small cushion for your head, that can be really nice. Nothing too thick, but just to help your neck alignment, but straight on the floor is also fine here. So you're going to lay onto your cushion, And we're gonna come basically like we're starting in the first aid recovery position here. So just let yourself get comfortable with your knee on the cushion or the block or whatever it is that you're using. And then you want to stretch your arms out in front on the same side that your knee is coming forward. And just start with your hands together. And then nice and slow, you want to take your left hand and start to drag it up over your head, hand on the floor as much as possible, as you come into a nice big circle, really reaching. As you start to come to head up on the ceiling, or eyes looking up to the ceiling, you want to make sure that you are rolling open here. So it's like an opening of a book, that your back of your head is aiming to be on the cushion as your shoulders open, and then you drag your hand on the floor until you basically come to your hip, and then you're just going to slide your hand across your hip and finish that circle and come back to your hand. So just on your own time here, taking a couple of more rounds with that circle, making it as big as possible, keeping your knee down on the cushion. And if your knee is coming off the cushion, that means that you're working too hard to keep your hand down. So your hand might not drag on the floor all the way around, and that's completely fine. What that does mean though is if your hand is not able to drag all the way around, except for when you come over your hip, of course, that you do have some work that you can do on your shoulder mobility. Often it has some issues with your chest can be tight, and possibly your thoracic spine as well. So this exercise is really working on all three areas: shoulder mobility, chest opening, and thoracic spine. So it's really like a triple threat exercise. And not only is it a great exercise, but it's a great evaluation. So you can use this to see how things are working in that upper portion of your body. And you should notice as we do a couple of circles, this gets a little bit easier. Places that are tight start to feel a little bit better. Let's do one more circle here. And just rest when you come back to the center, or hands together. Perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and roll over and do it on the opposite side. And I'm just gonna change my setup here so that I'm not rolling backwards to you. I'm just clearing the area, make sure that you have room so that you're not going to run into anything. And as you start to roll with your circles here, know that you can also stop and pause somewhere. So if you get to a spot that feels really tight, you might just want to hang out there for a couple of breaths. Take a few extra breaths, let things start to release a little bit more, and then as they start to loosen up, go back and finish your circle. So lots of options to work through here. I'm just going at your own pace, but this shouldn't be fast. Just a nice gentle speed. Making sure you take nice big deep breaths. As you come up over your head, your palm should start to flip up. So on the back half, it's really your knuckles that would be dragging on the floor. And then as you come back over the top of the hip, back to meet your hands, it's the fingers dragging on the floor. So just making sure that you roll your body open here. That does mean that your palm is gonna flip as well. Naturally, that should happen. Taking just a couple of more rounds here. This can also be a great warm-up exercise if you're doing any upper body physical training or fitness activities, just to make sure that everything in that whole upper body is moving as well as it can for you. Particularly great exercise for anybody who spends a lot of time at a computer, just to help loosen up all those areas that get tight. Good, let's finish one last circle here, and then coming back to the center when you get there. Perfect. So just slowly coming up here, and we're gonna make our way into pigeon stretch. So you can get there a lot of different ways. Today I'm gonna get there from downward facing dog. And when you come to downward dog, if you want to pedal your feet a couple of times, just move around a little bit, get settled. And when you're ready, lift your right leg and bring your right knee near your right wrist. And you're gonna walk the back leg back. Relax the back toes. Here might be a place that you want to tuck a block or a cushion underneath your bum bones. Maybe you like to take a cushion and put it underneath your chest and your shoulders here, or to bring your head down or your elbows down on. And we're not going to stay here too terribly long, so let yourself really release and sink into this position. And that might mean for you shifting your hips a little bit one way or the other to really get the best possible stretch that you can get. And as we come to the bottom, you're going to feel a little bit deeper of a stretch in through your right buttock or your right glute. We're also stretching on the left side, the front of the hip. So as I mentioned earlier, that if you're having some trouble and your hip mobility is not fantastic, it's really about opening up through the back of the hip, the glutes, the front of the hip, where our hip flexors lie, and then also taking care of any tension or tightness through our groin area. So this position really is targeting 2 of the 3 areas, and you might decide that you want to come more to the top on Pigeon, and that's going to give you just a little bit stronger of a stretch over on the left side front of the hip. As you sink lower, the stretch gets a little bit more intensified onto the back of the hip. So you might decide to do one or the other based on the fact that it feels really difficult, so you need to ease the tension on one side or the other, or coming into one position because that's the position that you know needs a little bit more attention in your stretching. Perfect. We're going to come out of Pigeon here. Just take your time. This could be lifting and pressing back to downward facing dog. You could just roll over to the side and just give your legs a little bit of a wiggle. And then when you're ready, we're going to come back to Pigeon on the opposite side. So lift your left leg, bringing left knee near left wrist here. Try to relax the back toes and take a little look behind you to make sure that your leg is going as straight back as possible without you forcing it in any different direction. And then settling into the place in Pigeon that is the most productive stretch for you today. And it is nice when you have the opportunity to bring your head down, even if it's on a cushion or a block, or maybe double stacking your fists to get your head down. Having a little pressure underneath the forehead tells your nervous system to relax. And when we do have a lot of tension and tightness in our body, definitely the nervous system is involved. And when our nervous system gets really fired up, really jacked up, that's helping hold that tension or create that tension in our body, a little bit of both. So the more we can relax our nervous system, we can get deeper, better, more productive stretching done. So that we're really not fighting our body in a sense that we're doing the stretches, but our nervous system is just so overwhelmed that it just wants to make everything tight all the time. So any opportunity that we can get to relax our nervous system, we should take it. Pardon me. Perfect. We're going to come out of Pigeon here. So just to show you a different option, you could just shift over onto your buttocks and then just gather your legs up that way. Tickle in my throat. So the next position that we're moving into is a little bit more relaxing way to open through the groin area. It's also a really nice way to also stretch out through the chest and shoulders a little bit more. So we're gonna lie on a bolster if you have one. This could be a shorter bolster where you use the cushion for your head. And you could definitely just lie flat on the floor if you need to here. So I'm gonna put my bum right at the edge of the bolster. And then I'm just gonna let myself lie back. And if the bolster feels like it's too intense through your chest and shoulders, then that might be a reason that you might say, I'm just gonna go on the floor, even if I have one. Let your knees open to the sides here. Close your eyes. And you might like to just let your arms relax by your sides here. You might stretch them more into a T, or maybe start to take them out to the sides in cactus, and that would be more if you're flat on your back, to open the chest and shoulders a little more. Pardon me. This is also a nice relaxing posture that you can do near the end of the day. And you do want to make sure that you close your knees at any point here if this starts to become too intense for your body. If you're feeling like you're holding your legs up. Good, and from here we are going to bring our knees to close. And you can stay on your bolster here, or you can decide to come off your bolster and just lie flat on your back. But bring your feet a little bit wider than shoulder width and bring your knees together to touch in the center. And this is an excellent position for allowing your hips to relax really deep into our psoas. And this is really a relaxation pose. Potentially you could stay here for a really long time, especially if you know your hips are really tight, if maybe you've got some pain in your back or your knees that's stemming from hip tightness. Good, and then just bring your legs more into shoulder width. Let your knees open here, just comfortably. And then start to let your legs just drift side to side. So in a windshield wiper motion. And try not to overthink this. So just let your legs fall from side to side, any depth that feels right. So it might be just a little bit to the side. Maybe your knees are going all the way to the floor. But just feel it out. Let your body flow here. Perfect. And then we're going to tuck our knees into our chest and come into happy baby stretch. So you're going to turn your feet up like you're standing on the roof, pushing your heels towards the ceiling. Bend your knees as much as you can, and then reach up and pull down gently from your feet, your ankles, or the back of your thighs, whatever you can comfortably reach for. Keeping your head against the floor. And this position helps to open up through the glutes or the bum muscles. It's also great for anyone that's got sciatic nerve issues or lower back pain. And you can stay still here, or it might feel nice to rock a little bit side to side. And now releasing your legs. And we are going to finish with a few minutes of Savasana today. So letting your legs stretch out, getting into any comfortable position. This might be lying on your back. You might prefer to roll over onto your side or your stomach. But just let yourself get really comfortable. Maybe toss on a sweater or grab a blanket. Close your eyes. Allow your breath to start to soften. Let your body start to release and let go a little bit more. With each breath, feel yourself becoming lighter, freer. And slowly now beginning to move away from Savasana. Start to make some small movements with your fingers and with your toes. And when you feel ready, bending your knees and let yourself roll over onto one side. And just resting there for a couple of breaths. And then beginning to bring yourself back to a comfortable seated or kneeling place on your mat. And we'll finish today's practice with our hands at our heart. Thank you so much for joining me today. The light within me honors the light within you. Namaste. And if you did like today's practice, please give me a thumbs up, shoot me a comment in the comment section, and don't forget to click the bell for notifications. Every time that there's a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.